Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So, taking a continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project. More specifically, in this instance, Jotego's work in progress Capcom CPS III core. Because basically, if I'm going to get any MiSTer questions on any given week, it's going to be when I think the Capcom CPS III core is going to be first playable. And Jotego updated a lot of people with a lot of new test footage showing that the game is booting, and even if it has some issues, it is well in the works, and hopefully we will all be testing it soon. And just so you know, right now you're watching CPS III footage, but not from Jotego's core, kind of presenting what the game would look like, and then going into the examples, because even though it'll be obvious to tell which one is which, I still kind of like to lead you guys into it that way. And just so you know, in case you haven't heard, the initial core is going to run two games. It's going to be the original Street Fighter III as well as Red Earth. The larger games are going to be coming in a second update, but honestly, getting Red Earth and the original Street Fighter is going to be fun in and of itself. And like I like to say on all of these videos, collecting and running real Capcom CPS III equipment, unless it's modified, is a metric pain in the ass. They break all the time. And if it is modified, you're going to be basically spending a mortgage payment to actually own one. And moving over to Jotego's own footage here, you're going to see that this is the intro to New Generation. Obviously, the aspect ratio isn't correct. When you actually get into the gameplay demo, there's going to be graphical corruption. But I can't stress enough just how impressive it is that the game is even booting up in and of itself, because the Capcom CPS III is not simple hardware whatsoever. Yes, it shares the Hitachi SH2 CPU with the Sega Saturn, and I'm sure that is aiding in development, but basically everything else on the board is going to be custom silicon designed by Capcom, from the sprite engine to the audio to everything else. But you'll see here, the important part to realize is the game logic is working. You're seeing things execute in the background, the code is functioning, it just isn't doing it quote-unquote correctly. But I always say on the channel, part of the reason I love stuff like FPGA core development, even software emulation, is I love the process that leads us into the perfect final result. And because we have Jotego's CPS and CPS II cores, the gold standard when it comes to Capcom arcade FPGA cores, you know full well that when Jotego and his team are done with this, you're going to get the same quality standard. But it is fun to kind of talk about the development process as we go around. Because you'll see here on Dudley's stage in the rain, you do have some corruption and some weird kind of almost desyncs in the image. But if we go over to the actual Capcom CPS III footage, obviously that is going to be missing. Now, if you're wondering why the aspect ratio on the footage is not correct, I'm really not sure, but there is a feature in Second Attack that actually gives you full widescreen support 16:9 for the Street Fighter games, but it is only Second Attack. New Generation as well as Third Strike do not have that contained within the test menu options, but I am kind of curious if there could potentially be a ROM hack sometime in the future that allows for that, because obviously if it was in Second Attack, I am surprised that it never ended up being in Third Strike. I feel like most people don't actually know that one of the Street Fighter III games on the Capcom CPS III can even support widescreen. It is the only one, but it is a really fun kind of party trick. And of course, by the time this is done, you're going to have all three Street Fighter games. You're going to have Red Earth, you're going to have the Jojo games as well, and that's going to be awesome. And the funny part is, I better hope you like some arcade fighting cores, because that is all that is going to be here for Capcom CPS III, because that's all that ever existed for the hardware. It really is an impressive piece of tech that Capcom barely got any games out for, because the entire industry was going to 3D when the Capcom CPS III was on the market, so it never really got all the love it deserved. But let's do a soundtrack sample of Jotego's in-core audio. It might not be perfect, but it is recognizable and is perfectly fine to listen to. And I'll be right back. We'll talk about Red Earth next.
Generation. Round 1. Fight!
So obviously that's not what Street Fighter 3 is supposed to sound like, but it is what it currently sounds like, and it is again instantaneously recognizable as should be from Street Fighter III, just not with the overall right pitch, the right speed, or anything else. But again, this is how these cores get made, and it's really what I kind of enjoy, because some core makers will send out all this preview footage and even give you alpha and beta cores to play around with. Jotego's always done it, Wickerwaka has it with the IGS PGM. You can build a core from the GitHub repo today. Other developers basically just wait till things are near to perfect and then they send them out, and there's not really a wrong way to do it. There's just different ways to do it, and this is my preferred. But moving over to Red Earth again, this is not Jotego's footage. You'll know when it is on screen, and I will tell you verbally as well. This is a ton of fun. Basically, it feels like the crossover between a beat 'em up and a fighting game, and kind of like a boss battle arena game, all in the same breath. And it really is one of those games that deserves more love. And this is going to be one of the two games that is working when the core is actually out to the public. And since Jotego does all his releases on Friday, maybe if we're lucky we'll see it at the end of this week, but I feel like there's probably still a couple more weeks to go, because this is a very heavy development, having to reverse engineer everything about the Capcom CPS III outside of the Hitachi SH2s, which obviously SRG 320 has worked on with the Sega Saturn core. It is a metric crap ton of work, and the fact that it's even working this well at this stage in time is just impressive, and is a testament to how good Jotego and his team are when it comes to making these things. And again, I can't stress enough, you do not want to own Capcom CPS III arcade hardware unless it's been modded and basically taken care of, because otherwise you're just sitting on a ticking time bomb that's going to be a when it breaks, not if it breaks, and that can just be really annoying when you have an arcade board that's expensive, you put it in storage, you take it out, and suddenly you didn't touch anything, but it needs to be completely repaired. And I say that because that's exactly what happened to my two different Capcom CPS boards. I got one modified, one I just kept for parts, and I ended up selling both some years ago because they still weren't anywhere near as entertaining enough to the overall headache and hassle they give you. Now going over to Jotego's Red Earth footage here, you're going to see the intro is working. It is recognizable as the game, but just like with Street Fighter III, there's going to be graphical glitches, the aspect ratio isn't correct, and obviously isn't ready to be quote-unquote playable. I'm sure it gets into the game and you can technically control things, but again, this is just a tech sample of what is coming. But considering Capcom CPS III has been widely considered to be the one core people want more than any other, beating out even the IGS PGM in the voting, which I was surprised by, I think you guys are all going to be really excited by this. And the nice thing is Wickerwaka is working on the IGS PGM core as well, and I'll either have a preview soon or I already showed it to you, not sure how I'm going to schedule these, so we really are getting the best of both worlds. Jotego and his team are working on Red Earth, Wickerwaka is working on IGS PGM, and we all end up as winners. You'll see here in the attract sequence basically the same issue that you're seeing with Street Fighter, but here too the sprites are actually suffering a little bit of corruption, because the code either isn't done or isn't perfected when it actually comes to the sprite chips on the Capcom CPS III. But just be patient with this one, you know it's coming, and you know if you understand Capcom CPS III hardware how incredibly big of a lift it is to actually get this thing even to the point where it's booting games. That's usually the hardest part, and it has been successful, so now it's not easy mode, but it's going to be easier. But here's the music in Red Earth, again not perfect, and I'll be right back with more. So obviously the audio quality there isn't perfect either, but it is slightly better than the Street Fighter example we just showed. And again, I want to remind you one more time so there isn't any disappointment when this thing comes out. It's going to be the original Street Fighter 3 as well as Red Earth. The rest of the Street Fighter upgrades as well as the Jojo games are going to be coming in a second, not core, but update. And that is because these are basically going to be smaller games, and how they actually load into the sims on a Capcom CPS III board. Jotego and his team are prioritizing the two smaller games, and they will go to the bigger bigger storage games after that, but it all runs on standard CPS3 hardware, so it's not like you're going to get into a situation where the back half of this becomes impossible, because it really just is a technique to get some things booting up and then continue to do the work. But I am sure maybe in the next like 3-6 months, who knows, maybe even a year, we all have to be patient. Jotego will release that final Capcom CPS III core, and you'll be playing Third Strike on your MiSTer FPGA without having to deal with Capcom CPS III hardware. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I hate the stuff, I do love the games. It just is a very expensive thing to buy right these days, and if you actually have one and haven't modded it, you know you're going to have to, because you know the thing is going to break. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, but get hyped because we're going to be playing Capcom CPS III and MiSTer FPGA before we know it. That's exciting. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.